If you want some fun, put a patch over your dominant eye and then go run the twisties on your motorcycle. The fun comes from the ride, not the patch. All the patch will do is take away vision in one eye. Some might say that would be foolhardy. Motorcycles are dangerous enough. Monocular vision on a motorcycle would only severely complicate things. Two eyes give us complete depth perception and a full viewing range. Without depth perception, we can't navigate well through three-dimensional space, and it may be difficult to judge what's near or far from us and by how much. Compound all of that with the speed and agility of a motorcycle in unpredictable traffic, and it would seem riding with one eye is a recipe for disaster. Even without the complication of motorcycles, people who lose vision in one eye are taught basic tips to help them adjust to the changes in everyday life. Tips to do the most basic of things. Things like, number 1, when pouring liquid, put the lip of the container on the rim of the cup or glass to make sure you're in the correct position before pouring. I've had the experience of pouring on the table, not in the glass, but I thought I was centered on the glass. Number 2, take your time on steps. Move cautiously. Always use a handrail if available, and feel ahead with your foot for the next step. And yes, I've missed a few steps, thinking they were higher or lower. Number 3, when crossing a street, take extra care to stop, enabling you to judge the depth of the curb and the distance of vehicles. It's a rude awakening to step off the sidewalk and discover the street is lower than you thought it was. With all this in mind, it would seem to make sense that if one has a problem pouring liquid into a glass, or reaching out for something handed to them and missing it on the first swipe, then speeding through the twisties would be ill-advised. Maybe, but not really. There's more to the story. I lost most of my vision in my left eye, my dominant eye, in 2015. Since then, there's been awkward moments, but we all adjust. The brain is a supercomputer at recalibrating and compensating for what life throws at us. The rocky unevenness of a steep hike in the mountains is still a challenge for me at times, but not like it was years ago. So what changed? When I decided to take up motorcycling again, why was I able to do it? And not just white knuckle it, but enjoy it. I just knew I could, but I didn't know why, not until recently. I started researching depth perception and came across a startling fact. According to science, the brain needs cues to build depth perception for us. These are called depth cues. Having two eyes gives us two critical depth cues. One is called two-eye parallax, and the other is called vergence. Parallax is the difference between what the left eye and the right eye sees, because each eye sees an object from a slightly different perspective. Vergence tracks how much the two eyes rotate to lock on an object. The greater the rotation, the closer the object. If it's extremely close, you probably get cross-eyed. If you have only one eye, then your sight is not getting any help from parallax or vergence. But that's where the big surprise comes in. You may be missing two critical depth cues for the brain to use, but the brain has 19 other depth cues to rely on instead. 19. Any of the 19 by themselves may not fully compensate for the loss of the critical two, but 19 working together can give the brain enough to go on to give you a working idea of depth perception to rely on instead. Here are the other 19 depth cues. Two-eyed people have 21 cues, including these, but if you have one eye, these 19 become what you count on to get you through the twisties. Motion parallax. Kinetic depth effect. Depth from optical expansion. familiar shape, relative size, familiar size, estimated size, uniform size, parallel lines, texture gradient, horizon effect, occlusion, surface shading, recess shading, shadow shape, shadow size, location, and blurriness, atmospheric effects, depth from defocusing, accommodation and pupil response. If you're interested in learning more, I recommend reading the work of Dr. Christopher S. Baird, author of the Top 50 Science Questions with Surprising Answers, and Associate Professor of Physics at West Texas A&M University.